Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to Naval Station Norfolk and to the commissioning ceremony of the USS Minnesota. I am Lieutenant Commander John Whitty, the ship's executive officer. On behalf of the crew, I would like to extend our sincere thanks for joining us here today. Before our ceremony begins, I would ask that you please take a moment to silence your cell phones for the duration of the ceremony. Thank you. We are here today to celebrate the commissioning of USS Minnesota, the third ship to carry the name of the Fighting North Star State. The first Minnesota was a wooden steam frigate that served as the flagship of the Atlantic Blockading Squadron during the Civil War. If you look down the pier out onto the Chesapeake Bay, you will see where the first Minnesota saw action in the Battle of Hampton Roads. In 1862, the first Minnesota ran aground during a pitched battle with Confederate naval forces, including the ironclad Confederate ship Virginia. Although she fired over 400 rounds during the engagement, Minnesota and the Union fleet were unable to cause significant damage to the Virginia, and the battle's outcome was in doubt. Darkness and tides prevented the Virginia from continuing her attack on the Minnesota during the first day of the battle. When she attempted to continue the attack on Minnesota the next day, she was met by the USS Monitor, and the two ironclads did battle, forever changing the course of naval warfare. The Minnesota would survive the day and serve for another 30 years. The ship's bell and helm from this historic ship are on display here today. The second Minnesota was a battleship built by Newport News Shipbuilding and commissioned in 1907. That same year, she joined 15 other battleships as a part of President Teddy Roosevelt's Great White Fleet, which, for the next 14 months, traveled 46,000 miles and circumnavigated the globe to announce the United States as a modern naval power. The third and newest warship, Minnesota, you see behind me, began construction in February 2008 and was christened on October 27, 2012 at Newport News Shipbuilding. Today she is complete and battle ready. We are all very proud to serve on the newest attack submarine in the United States Navy. Today's ceremony is a time-honored tradition that began with the commissioning of the Navy's first ship, a captured British schooner, the Margaretta, in 1775. Since then, thousands of ships have undergone the transition from silent hull to a fully alive warship. My shipmates, our commissioning crew, hereafter known as plank owners, are in formation and ready. Our bosun today is Bosun Mate Chief Select Marquardt from Osseo, Minnesota. A Submarine Squadron 6 Honor Guard, the Fleet Forces Band, and the Sewell's Point Saluting Battery will render honors and a 19-gun salute in honor of the Honorable Amy Klobuchar, United States Senator, State of Minnesota. This will take place in just a few moments. Ship's company, attend. Hut! Will the guests please rise and remain standing for the honors, presentation of colors, our national anthem, and the invocation. Ladies and gentlemen, our platform guests. Colonel John Morris, Minnesota National Guard, our ceremony chaplain. Mr. Dave Hutton, Minnesota's Commissioning Committee, co-chairman. Mr. Brian Scahn, Minnesota's Commissioning Committee, co-chairman. Electronics Technician Chief Michael Herman, former crew member of USS Minneapolis St. Paul. Captain Kevin Terry, Supervisor of Shipbuilding, Newport News. Rear Admiral Michael Javeley, Deputy Commander, Undersea Warfare, Naval Sea Systems Command. Rear Admiral Kenneth Perry, Commander, Submarine Group 2. Mr. Kevin Poitras, President, General Dynamics, Electric Boat. Mr. Matthew Mulheron, President, Newport News Shipbuilding. Vice Admiral Michael Connor, Commander, Submarine Forces. Admiral Jonathan Greenert, Chief of Naval Operations. The Honorable Ray Mavis, Secretary of the Navy. The Honorable Betty McCollum, United States Representative, 4th District, State of Minnesota. The Honorable Al Franken, United States Senator, State of Minnesota. The Honorable Mark Warner, United States Senator, Commonwealth of Virginia. Ladies and gentlemen, our ship's sponsor, Mrs. Ellen Ruffhead, escorted today by Electronics Technician Master Chief Randy Reed, Chief of the boat. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Amy Klobuchar, United States Senator, State of Minnesota, escorted today by Captain John Fancher, Minnesota's prospective commanding officer. Ladies and gentlemen, honors to the Honorable Amy Klobuchar, United States Senator, State of Minnesota. Platform and salute. Platform. Ready? 2. Our color guard is made of sailors from Submarine Squadron 6, and our national anthem is performed by the United States Fleet Forces Band. Advance the colors. Retire the colors. Platform. Ready? 2. Ladies and gentlemen, Chaplain Morris will deliver the invocation.
Good morning, Senator Warner, Senator Klobuchar, Senator Franken, Representative McCollum, Mr. Secretary, Admirals, Captain, Master Chief, crew of the USS Minnesota, distinguished guests, and friends. Would you bow with me as I offer you this Christian prayer on this wonderful occasion? Eternal Father, ruler of all that is, for whom our nation hath been established, and in freedom, preserved in union, we thank you for the rich heritage we share in this commissioning this morning. Thank you for the beautiful day, for the hard work and labor of all those who've given life to the ship, for the crew, for their families. We give you thanks. We ask that this ship, the third ship that bears the name of Minnesota, would build on the heritage of previous generations who've performed heroic and wonderful deeds, leaving a heritage of self-sacrifice and service. We pray that this crew and this ship, in the interest of our freedom and justice, would carry that legacy forward wherever it travels and serves. We pray that you would bless the ship, that she may be in your hands, an avenger to all who have disturbed the peace of our world. May she strike terror into the hearts of those who do evil, who thwart justice, and who threaten the peace and democracy of our citizens. Be present with us as we celebrate today this time-honored tradition of bringing the ship to life, and stay present with this ship and its crew for all of her days. We ask in your most holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Morris. Will the guests please be seated? Ship's company, parade, press. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Mark Warner, United States Senator, Commonwealth of Virginia.
Secretary Mavis, Senator Klobuchar, Senator Franklin, Congresswoman McCollum, Congressman Scott, Congressman Whitman, members of the Navy, and distinguished guests in particular, welcome to all our friends from Minnesota. I would like to welcome you to Virginia and Naval Station Norfolk, the largest naval complex in the world. I am honored to be here for the commissioning of the USS Minnesota, the 10th ship in the Virginia-class of submarines. Virginia-class submarines are a model acquisition program. They embody the spirit of the teamwork. Huntington Ingalls, the United States Navy, and the skilled Newport News shipbuilders have worked together to deliver the Minnesota on budget and 11 months ahead of schedule. And if I might add a brief editorial comment to those who work with me up in Congress, wouldn't it be great if we said Congress had that same kind of record? Today is a day of celebration, but it is also a serious day. In Congress, we are considering putting American armed forces into harm's way. And we in Congress owe you the best equipment and training to prepare you for your mission. In the USS Minnesota, I believe we have met that test. Captain Fancher, you and the crew of the Minnesota have raised your hands to serve. You and your crew have put your country first. Your shipmates are on duty off the coast of Syria. Many aboard those ships left this port at Norfolk just a few weeks ago. So as we mark the commissioning of this great submarine named after the great state Minnesota, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the men and women who serve here as shipbuilders, sailors, officers, and Americans. Thank you for coming to Virginia. And again, Captain, congratulations. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Senator Warner. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kevin Poitras, President, General Dynamics Electric Boat.
Thank you, XO. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to begin by recognizing today's distinguished platform guests, especially Mrs. Ellen Ruffhead, the very gracious sponsor of Minnesota. On behalf of the 12,000 men and women of General Dynamics Electric Boat, I'm honored to participate in the commissioning of Minnesota, the 10th ship of the Virginia class. This is a proud day for the U.S. Navy, the employees of Electric Boat, our teammates at Newport News, the nationwide submarine supplier base, and our congressional supporters. Minnesota is the last ship to be built under the very successful Block II contract. I'd like to take a moment to reflect on what the Virginia-class team has accomplished over the course of this contract. Block II was signed a decade ago, and work began even before the lead ship of the class, USS Virginia, was in the water. The track record for improvement attained by the Navy industry team since then has been noteworthy. This positive performance trend is continuing and accelerating, a reflection of the step changes in performance we have attained primarily through the 4-module build plan. Over the past decade, this has enabled the Virginia team to return more than $100 million to the program by under-target cost deliveries. Later this month, the first ship of Block III, the North Dakota, will be floated off at the Electric Boat Shipyard at an earlier stage in its construction span than any prior Virginia class. The Virginia team is working hard to deliver this ship in less than 60 months. Through the timing of the award of the Block IV contract, we can maintain this momentum and thereby sustain the performance that is the hallmark of the Virginia-class program and the highly effective Navy and industry partnership. Finally, I'd like to recognize Captain John Fancher and his extraordinary crew who have brought life to this ship. I know firsthand of their dedication to duty and commitment to excellence. And I know I speak for everyone here today when I extend my best wishes to Captain Fancher and the entire ship's company for a safe and distinguished tour of duty. May USS Minnesota serve you and our nation long and well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poitras. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Matthew Mulherin, President, Newport News Shipbuilding.
Thank you, XO, and good morning, everyone. Distinguished platform guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to be here today representing the men and women of Newport News Shipbuilding who built Minnesota. I am also pleased that so many of our shipbuilders are with us today to see their hard work come to life as the 10th and newest Virginia-class submarine joins the Navy fleet. Today is a special day in the history of this submarine and for those who will sail her. It is also a special day for her shipbuilders. We are proud that in collaboration with our teammates at Electric Boat and our Navy partners, we collectively completed Minnesota nearly 1 year ahead of schedule and on budget. This performance is also the result of an effective team that extends well beyond our shipyards. Throughout construction, we have formed great partnerships with our supply base that builds components and parts for submarines in shops and factories across all 50 states. We've also developed a great relationship and partnership with the Minnesota's officers and crew. In fact, in some respects, we hated to see them leave the yard. But having had the privilege to participate in initial sea trials with Captain Fancher and his crew, I know that this crew belongs at sea. Their place is hidden beneath the waves, navigating the oceans in lethal silence. During sea trials, it was incredibly gratifying to see this magnificent vessel operate so well. Minnesota clearly carries out the Virginia-class tradition of raising the bar on operational readiness and capability while continuously improving on cost and schedule performance. Although we will most likely never hear or see or read about this ship publicly, I am confident that this submarine will continue to accomplish great things and our nation will be safer placed with SSN 783 on watch. She will project power from the north wherever she sails. She will serve as a tribute to the people of Minnesota. She will represent the strength of her crew and, in fact, the pride of her shipbuilders. And she will carry with her the spirit of her sponsor. Ellen, ever since EWR was welded to Minnesota during her keel laying, your initials and indeed your spirit have become a permanent fixture on this boat. Thank you for all you have done and all you will continue to do to ensure Minnesota's success. In closing, I'd like to congratulate Captain Fancher and his crew on commissioning. It has been an honor working with you to bring USS Minnesota to life. We wish you continued success, and we thank you for your service to our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mulherin. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Betty McCollum, United States Representative, 4th District, State of Minnesota.
Good morning. Good morning to all of you here, but a special good morning to the USS Minnesota crew from Minnesota. Good morning to you. Ms. Ruffhead, Secretary, Admiral Garrett, distinguished guests, and as I said earlier, to the entire crew of the USS Minnesota, it is truly an honor and a pleasure to be with you here today. This is a very special day. Today's commissioning is a tribute to the bravery of our veterans, as well as to the proud service of all of those in the Navy in all branches of our military. I want to extend my gratitude to the men and women who planned, designed, and built this vessel, which is truly a technology and a marvel. We are deeply proud of your workmanship and commitment on behalf of the American people. Now, I know Minnesotans will share a tremendous pride in the USS Minnesota as it becomes the newest vessel and the most powerful naval fleet the world has ever known. Allow me to give a special thank you to you, Ms. Roughhead, for your leadership in sponsoring this ship, this boat. Like Ms. Roughhead and all Minnesotans, we love our state, the land of 10,000 lakes and our beautiful forests and our farm fields and our mines. And as men and women who operate this vessel go to sea, we are acutely aware that this is much more than a symbol of the U.S.'s technology. This epitomizes our country's global leadership in sea power superiority in the 21st century. The United States Navy is agile, flexible, and responsive, traits most recently demonstrated by moving the Navy closer into the Middle East on such short notice, and doing so perfectly. In the coming decades, thousands of brave men and women will serve on the USS Minnesota, and they will have an unbreakable bond with the great state that I represent. On behalf of Minnesota, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude, as well as my prayers, to the officers and crews who will sail this remarkable submarine. May God bless all of you. May God bless our beloved nation and its people. Smooth sailing to you all.
Thank you, Congresswoman McCollum. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Al Franken, United States Senator, State of Minnesota.
Thank you all. Good morning on this beautiful day. I especially want to express my appreciation to Secretary Mabus and the team at the Navy. Hoo-yah. At the Navy, hoo-yah. Who made my participation here possible. Today is a proud day for the Navy, hoo-yah. And it's a proud day for the state of Minnesota, oh yeah. It's been almost a century since the Navy had a ship named after the state of Minnesota, so we're putting the oh yeah back in hoo-yah. I was not originally going to be here today because I was going to be still in Minnesota. I decided to cut my time in Minnesota short, however, to come back to Washington so I could be briefed on Syria and the possible use of military force there. If we take that momentous step, the Navy will almost certainly be a central part of the response to the Assad regime's horrifying use of chemical weapons. So I just want to thank all the men and women of the Navy and of the armed forces for the role that you play in assuring that America is a force for good in the world. You see, the motto of the Minnesota, translated from the Latin, is "From the North, Power." And that is appropriate and well-deserved. But we in Minnesota also understand that it's not just about power. What makes the United States great is that we use our power for the good of the nation and the world. Ships like the Minnesota play a key role in helping us use our power in the world to do right. The logo that Jacob Bartels from Roseville, Minnesota, who is here today, the logo that Jacob designed for the Minnesota shows some of the symbols of our state's distinctive greatness, the colors of the University of Minnesota, the Vikings, our walleye, evidently a very vicious walleye, and the North Star. I know that logo will serve as an inspiration for Captain Fancher and his crew as you help to keep our nation strong. So to the crew and to all of you, thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Senator Franken. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Amy Klobuchar, United States Senator, State of Minnesota.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. A beautiful day, and it's good to be here with my colleagues, Senator Warner and Senator Franken, as well as Representative McCollum, Representative Scott up here in the front row, Secretary of State Ritchie. Thank you for being here. All of our legislators from Minnesota, Secretary Mavis, and of course, I got to be escorted in today by Captain Fancher. And I would say to the crew, if he commands you in the same way that he directed me up for my 19-gun salute, you're in good shape. I'm going to try to make my remarks brief as I've watched my husband's head get more and more sunburned over there. And it's not looking good, honey. But I did want to bring you greetings, first of all, from the state of Minnesota, where, in the words of our unofficial poet laureate, Garrison Keillor, right, the women are strong, the men are good-looking, and all the sailors are above average. We have an incredible group of Minnesotans here, but one of my favorite is 90-year-old Martin Menk from St. Peter, Minnesota. Martin served on a submarine in the South Pacific during World War II and is part of our greatest generation. Martin, we are so honored that you could join us. There he is. Now, as we look at the serious decisions we have to make this week, we are once again reminded of the incredible service of those who stand for freedom, who are doing the frontline work of promoting peace, justice, and decency in the world. So thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. It is truly a great honor to be here and to finally have a ship named after Minnesota after 90 years of waiting. As you know, we are the third ship here. The first one was a Civil War-era steam frigate, and the second one was one of President Theodore Roosevelt's Great White Fleet battleships. So it has been 92 years, and we are a patient state. When the crew gets asked about having a ship, a submarine, named after Minnesota, we are reminded, of course, that we don't have an ocean. I was reminded of that when I was assigned to the Ocean Subcommittee as a freshman senator. I looked around the committee and I saw Trent Lott and John Kerry and Olympia Snow, and I wrote a note to the late Frank Lautenberg of New Jersey and said, I am the only senator on the Ocean Subcommittee that doesn't have an ocean. And without a break, he wrote back to me, no problem, next year come back and ask for one. Well, I might not have an ocean, but we have a sub, and we are so proud of it. Minnesota, I want to tell the crew, has a long, long tradition of serving our country. During the Battle of Gettysburg, it was the 250 members of the 1st Minnesota Regiment that held the line while desperately needed reinforcements were brought in on the Union side. We had only been a state for 3 years. It was the highest rate of casualties of any regiment in that battle. The proud Minnesota heritage continues today, from the Bulldogs of the 148th Fighter Wing in Duluth to the Red Bulls of the 134th Brigade Combat Team, who served the longest single deployment of any unit in the Iraq War in 2007. So I will end with this. I mentioned that ragtag crew of farmers and workers who stood before the First Lady of the state of Minnesota in 1861, Anna Ramsey. And as she sent them off to battle, not a uniform on one of them, work boots, farm boots, she said to them this, to you is reserved a proud destiny. The solicitude and love of the entire state will follow you. From this capital to the most remote frontier cottage, no heart but shall send up a prayer for your safety and success. No eye but shall follow with affection the flutterings of your banner as you cover it with glory. In your hands, we feel that the honor of our young state is safe. Captain and crew, we say the same to you with the USS Minnesota. We feel that the honor of our state is safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Jonathan Greenert, Chief of Naval Operations.
Good morning, everyone. Senators, Congresswoman, Congressman Scott, good to see you. Congressman Whitman, I saw you out there. Secretary Mabus, and distinguished guests here on the podium. And, of course, our good friend, Ellen Roughhead. You know, a lot has been said about Ellen. She happens to be a friend of Darlene and I have to tell you that there is no better person to be a ship sponsor. She's a person of genuinity. She's a person who cares. She's gracious and graceful. And you know, it doesn't hurt to have a four-star admiral, former Chief of Naval Operations, as her executive assistant. And you know, Gary, we had a few minutes beforehand. Ellen says that your internship is going okay. But those of us who are nuclear trained would say, as we would say, a few deficiencies were noted. But you're doing okay. Listen, I am obviously very proud to accept this ship today. I love our submarine force. I love all our Navy. But the bottom line is this ship, as with all its sister ships that go under the sea, can go anywhere in the world. They dominate. We own the undersea domain. And ladies and gentlemen, I have the empirical data to prove it. So trust me on that. It is a technical marvel, it really is, made by the finest shipbuilders in the world, as has been said here today. But our asymmetric advantage, and today is the 40th anniversary of that, is the all-volunteer force, and it is her crew and their families and their loved ones who support them that make all the difference in the world. You can't beat that. So 3 months ago, we took delivery of Minnesota, as was mentioned earlier, 11 months ahead of schedule and on budget. Very proud of that. They should be proud of that. And Gary, I thank you because it was during your tenure that you led the charge to do what we call a block buy. And that means, well, you buy in bulk. And it's sensible, and it's efficient, and it's less expensive. And you get things 11 months early and on budget when you do that. So we're on a roll, ladies and gentlemen, in the submarine force and in the submarine building industry. The Virginia class enables, as I said, our continued dominance of the undersea domain. We've been at this dominance for over 70 years, and it's my job, and it's the job of this crew to make sure we continue that on your behalf and on the citizens of the United States. It's uniquely Navy, this asymmetric capability of this submarine with its crew, and potential adversaries, frankly, they fear it. This is something, this thing behind me, not to mention the one behind you, are, again, our asymmetric advantage. It's what makes the difference out there. So Minnesota is a significant part of this continued dominance. It enables the persistent, stealthy access anywhere in the contested waters. To you sailors, I say thank you for choosing to go Navy. Thank you so much for serving. I'm glad to have you join us today. And I want you to call your mothers every week. You got it? All right. Hoo-yah. Hoo-yah. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce my boss. This is a man of vision, a man of leadership, a man of compassion, and somebody who really cares. He has a diverse and distinguished history of public service. Hey, he was one of us. He was a naval officer on the USS Little Rock. Now, you may have seen a picture of that and said, why, it's Yasser Arafat. No, that was back when we had beards in the Navy. That was Ray Mabus back then. But he understands, seriously, he understands the culture of going to sea and what it means. He was the auditor for the state of Mississippi, where he learned and brought to us innovation and judiciousness. And he is a good steward of tax dollars, and we know that by our daily dealings with the good secretary. He was the youngest governor of the state of Mississippi, where he insisted on the investment in the education system. Secretary Mabus understands the seed core of our future and what that means, and he has brought that also to the Navy. He was the ambassador to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where he helped a culture understand the value of equal rights and equal opportunity for all. And you see that in their culture today, how things change. Today he is our 75th Secretary. He's responsible for the Navy, obviously, and my primary joint partner and our brothers and sisters in arms, the Marine Corps. He has a comprehensive Sailor Marine program, the 21st Century Sailor Marine, and he cares a lot about families, a lot. He has a tangible energy vision strategy that is bearing fruit. Please help me welcome to the podium the Honorable Ray Mabus.
To our wonderful CNO, Jonathan Greenert, thank you so much. Admiral Greenert is a great partner to have. He is a proud submariner, and I have to say I have just the slightest bit of hesitation around submariners and around submarines. Being a former surface sailor, I know what they call our ships, targets. To my neighbor, Senator Warner, Senator Klobuchar, Senator Franken, to Congresswoman McCollum, Congressman Scott, Congressman Whitman, to the captain and crew of the USS Minnesota, to our distinguished visitors on and off the platform, and to all of you who have come to Hampton Roads on this late, beautiful summer day. Thank you for joining us as we commission the newest member of our fleet, USS Minnesota. And I, too, want to add a special word of thanks to our sponsor, Ellen Ruffhead. I understand that you are married to someone who was in the Navy and have a good grasp of the Navy, and that he is in the audience today along with your daughter. The service that Ellen Ruffhead brought to our country by supporting our sailors and their families over the years has been a testament to her and to her native state of Minnesota. Now, this is an exciting day for a couple of reasons. Looking back on what's been accomplished in building this powerful warship, and looking forward to what the future holds for it and the crew who will sail in her. For the sailors and the officers who make up the boat's crew, one day soon you'll be getting underway, taking her out the Thimble Shoals Channel and going to your dive point. The boat you'll be taking out, as you have heard, is a modern marvel. It was just 28 months ago that Ellen Ruffhead was here to preside over the keel laying with the crew of Minnesota. In that time, over 1,000 shipyard craftsmen and engineers have worked directly on what is by far the most advanced submarine in the world. Today marks the culmination of their hard work, their skill, their dedication, as we commission this boat, again, as you have heard, almost a year ahead of schedule and on budget. Now, as a former governor of Mississippi, I do have to take a moment to mention that although she is over 11 months ahead of schedule, Mississippi was delivered a year ahead of schedule and still holds the record. But as one of my predecessors, Secretary of the Navy William Jones, who was Secretary during the War of 1812, wrote, "Those who are employed in the shipyard are a valuable, indispensable, and independent class." In 200 years since the War of 1812, little has changed. It's one of the strengths of our system, the amazing work of our Navy civilians and industry partners. It is because of their relentless drive to improve construction standards, raise efficiency, that we are able to build the platform we have for our global Navy. It's what makes our presence around the world possible, not just in the right place at the right time, but in the right place all the time. Minnesota, and the success of the Virginia-class submarines proves that acquisition excellence isn't just a talking point. It's how we're building the future fleet. In the past 4 years, we've arrested the decline in the size of our fleet. Since May of 2009, we have put 60 ships under contract and are on a pace to return the fleet to 300 ships before the end of this decade. The men and women who build these boats, and that building plan includes 2 Virginia-class submarines a year. The men and women who build them at Huntington Ingalls and at Electric Boat in Groton have helped make our fleet stronger, our nation safer. To maintain our presence and our influence around the world, our platforms matter. Our platforms have always mattered. You are surrounded by them today here in Norfolk. This crew and I have already spent a little time together. This spring we shared the honor of participating in the internment of a group of United States sailors at Arlington National Cemetery. The men were Civil War veterans who perished aboard USS Monitor when our nation's first ironclad went down in a storm off North Carolina in 1862. Because for United States sailors, in times of war or in times of peace, this is a perilous profession. On, above, and below the sea, they face dangers greater than just combat. Members of this Minnesota crew came to Arlington to honor the memory of the sailors who had gone before them, to honor sailors who had served in battle with a previous Minnesota crew. Just a little ways from here, in the direction of Fort Monroe, in 1862, the first USS Minnesota fought a bloody battle with the Confederate ship Virginia. Off Newport News, they battled for hours with the Confederate ship whose revolutionary technology as an ironclad made it absolutely impervious to their cannon. Minnesota survived that day, and the next morning, USS Monitor and those sailors we buried at Arlington appeared and placed themselves between the damaged Minnesota and the fresh assault from Virginia. The Union ships drove off Virginia, and after the battle, Minnesota was repaired and sent to North Carolina for the Battle of Fort Fisher, where 9 of her crew members earned the Medal of Honor. Today, it is the crew of this Minnesota that has the most advanced ship sailing the world's oceans. This submarine is one of the most powerful vessels the world has ever seen. It will serve our nation for the next 4 decades, sailing the 7 seas from the frigid Arctic and the polar ice cap to the tropical waters of the South Pacific, on patrol, providing presence. The history of this ship's name reinforces for me 2 fundamental truths that I have learned as Secretary. First, that American technology and innovation have always led the world, from our first 6 frigates through the days of the ironclads to today's nuclear-powered submarines like Minnesota. It isn't about how much they cost, because if we did it by cost alone, we'd still be using sail. It's the combat advantage they give us on and under the sea. But second, and most important, that the heart of our Navy and our most important priority and the thing that gives us the edge no matter what the circumstances continues to be the skilled, the dedicated, the always courageous United States sailor. You see those sailors standing before you in their dress uniforms. You see them around you as veterans from wars that we have fought in far-flung places. You see them today but mostly you do not see them. We are America's away team, and when our Navy and Marine Corps are doing their jobs, they are usually a long way from home. It is good and fitting and very proper that we take this opportunity when they are home, and the very few times that they are able to assemble here, that we thank them. We thank them for their presence, we thank them for their service, we thank them for their sacrifice that they and their families make, and we thank them for keeping us safe every single day and night. Now it's time to place this ship in commission so this crew can take her to sea, so they can defend our nation just as their predecessors have done for 237 years. From the Navy, Semper Fortis, always courageous.
Secretary Mabus, I would be honored if you would place Minnesota in commission.
For the President of the United States, I hereby place United States ship Minnesota in commission. May God bless and guide this warship and all who shall sail in her.
Thank you, Secretary Mabus. Executive Officer, hoist the colors in the commissioning pennant.
Aye, aye, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. I direct your attention to the boat as we hoist the colors and the commissioning pennant. Minnesota, attend. Hoot! Quartermaster, hoist the colors and the commissioning pennant.
Aye, aye, sir.
Captain, the colors and commissioning pennant are flying over USS Minnesota.
Very well.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
I will now read my orders. From Chief of Naval Personnel to Commander John Fancher, United States Navy. Subject, Bureau of Naval Personnel, Order Number 1040 of 15 July 2010. When directed, detach present duty and proceed to Pre-Commissioning Unit, Minnesota for duties in conjunction with fitting out. Upon commissioning of USS Minnesota, report for duty as Commanding Officer. Signed, D.P. Quinn, Rear Admiral, United States Navy, Commander, Navy Personnel Command. Admiral Greenert, USS Minnesota is in commission and I am in command.
Very well. Congratulations. Good to have you here.
Executive Officer, set the watch.
Aye, aye, sir. Off to the deck. Set the first watch.
Aye, sir.
The officer of the deck is the commanding officer's direct representative, and while on watch, is responsible for the safety and smooth operation of the ship. The long glass is the traditional symbol of an officer of the deck's authority in a ship of the line. To assist in this tradition, we have a member of our crew, electronics technician, Chief Michael Herman. Chief Herman is a former crew member of USS Minneapolis-St. Paul, SSN 708, which was decommissioned in 2007 after 24 years of service. He represents the heritage we share with that ship in representing the North Star State. He will assist in setting the first watch by passing a long glass to our first officer of the deck, Lieutenant Albert Kaluag, United States Navy.
Set the watch. On deck, Section 1.
Sir, the watch is set.
Very well. Captain, the watch is set.
Very well. We are delighted to have our sponsor, Mrs. Ellen Ruffhead, with us today. Ellen christened this boat on October 27th, 2012. Ellen, I would be honored if you would join me and give me the order to man the ship and bring her to life.
I have waited for a long time to say, what a great Navy day. Today is my opportunity. What a great Navy day. What a great day for Minnesota in all respects. It's an honor to share the stage with so many distinguished guests. Welcome to all from Minnesota, all from the Navy, and to the family and the friends of the USS Minnesota. Thanks to the men and women who built Minnesota, they have provided a fierce boat worthy of the sea and deadly to her enemies. Thanks to the families of Minnesota, they are always stalwart, they are always optimistic, they are always there. They are the true home port for Minnesota's crew. Today is really only about the men who will go to sea, who will work, and who will live on board Minnesota. I will speak directly to them. You have trained, you have been tested, and you have met every challenge with exceptional ease and grace. You are ready to go. There's not a more competent nor more committed group anywhere. In a book called Our Naval Heroes, Josephine Pollard said, "So it seems to me that a man or a boy or a woman, I will add, who joins the Navy has need of strong nerves, a brave heart, a clear head, a firm will, and a soul at peace with God. And then he will be sure to dare great deeds, to do just what needs to be done, and to prove himself a hero wherever he may be. There is no question that this crew, so ably led by Captain Fancher, will dare great deeds and be labeled by all as heroes. I wish you fair winds and following seas. Thank you for letting me be part of this great Navy Day. Go Navy, go Minnesota." Are you ready? Officers and crew of the USS Minnesota, man our ship and bring her to life.
gentlemen, the crew of USS Minnesota salutes you. We are proud to serve in your great Navy. Ready? 2. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Captain, the boat is manned and ready.
Very well. Admiral Perry, USS Minnesota, reports for duty. Secretary Mavis, request permission to break your flag. Executive Officer, break the flag of the Secretary of the Navy.
Aye, aye, sir. Quartermaster, break the flag of the Secretary of the Navy.
Aye, aye, sir.
Captain, the flag of the Secretary of the Navy is flying over USS Minnesota.
Very well.
Ladies and gentlemen, Captain John Fancher, United States Navy, Commanding Officer, USS Minnesota, SSN 783.
Thank you, XO. I would start by recognizing a special group here in the audience. With the U.S. submarine veterans, if you could all stand. Thank you for your service. Thank you for maintaining our heritage and our legacy. Senators, Congressmen, Secretary Mavis, Ellen, flag officers, all of the representatives from the Minnesota legislature, distinguished guests, family, and all friends of Minnesota, you honor us with your presence. As you can imagine, speaking last in this distinguished line of speakers, to say the least, presents a challenge. As such, I will be brief. At every stage, teamwork has defined the only way that we stand here today. I would like to thank the delivery team at Newport News Shipbuilding. One aspect that I did not realize I could count on, but eventually learned to trust, is that we would be provided the time we needed to be ready for our next challenge. The delivery team realized that to get to the finish line, we needed to get there together. And that teamwork was embodied at every level, from the numerous craftsmen, and yes, I'll say artisans, on the deck plate to the highest levels of management. And just like finishing the boat, there was a team helping to finish the crew. The historical memory and expert assistant provided by the local Submarine Group 2 representative staff, as well as the Home Office in Groton, supervisor of shipbuilding Newport News, and the staff at Submarine Squadron 6 was invaluable, and without it, our successes would not have been as easy to achieve. Thank you. There hasn't been a better group to work with to build the relationship with the state of Minnesota. The Twin Cities Council of the Navy League and the Commission Committee reached out to me from day one, and they've been with us ever since. The state of Minnesota has a rich history supporting the military, and on every trip to that state, the support was obvious and ubiquitous. Thank you for helping make this day possible. Ellen, your energy and nerve have been remarkable these past few years. Every time you visit, you leave us feeling refreshed and wanting the next visit sooner. I look forward to the continued sponsorship, your family, and I know the crew does also. Now, I spoke of teams and teamwork. The most important team to me is, of course, the crew. While many would look at the Minnesota behind me here and marvel at its technology and power, what amazes me continuously and repeatedly is the ability for the crew to meet every challenge and every milestone presented them, and furthermore, how effortless this incredible group of officers and enlisted men make it for me. Now, I want to pause and make sure that I'm clear when I say crew. I actually think of the families at home as well. I know that without the support that every one of us is given, I would not be able to count on some of the Herculean efforts that have been asked of them. If you call a Minnesota sailor family, please stand. While the crew is hard at work, business continues at home, and it is your efforts that allow us to do the job we do. Through long days and nights that we may come home late, or sometimes not at all, due to last-minute schedule changes, you still took care of business, and the business that counts. Thank you. Okay. Most combat ready, ahead of schedule, ready for tasking. These are some of the descriptors that have been used for Minnesota. Many have asked me recently what it was like watching Minnesota come together over the last 3 years. It was amazing. Now, certainly watching the construction process itself is, at least for me, a once-in-a-lifetime experience. But what was truly amazing was watching the Minnesota crew come together. From the beginnings of only about 50 crew members, where the vast majority had never even operated a Virginia-class submarine, to the crew you see standing before you, numbered 137 today, described as the most combat ready and ready for tasking. Although not as glamorous as a secret mission in a faraway ocean that we could not tell you about anyway, the crew never failed to be ready for their next milestone. Whether that milestone was another phase of testing, an onslaught of new system turnovers from the shipyard, or another certification where the crew would be tested by outside agencies on a new facet of their job. Sometimes it took long hours to be sure, but they never faltered. They were always ready. They knew that the hard work today would pay off. Call it money in the bank. It would pay off because they would be ready to do what every sailor in the Navy does. They join the Navy to go to sea. Their honor, their courage, their commitment to excellence, their pride in their job, their ownership of the process carried them to the finish line. I could not have asked for a better crew, and I am honored and I am humbled to call them shipmates. In stories yet to be written, Minnesota will show the name of the nation's flag in ports around the world. For the Minnesotans here today, you have a good ship and an incredible crew representing you. Minnesota has a great beginning, and I am sure an even brighter future. May God bless the Minnesota, the Navy, and the United States of America. Thank you.
Ship's Company, attend. Hut! Will the guests please rise? Chaplain Morris will deliver the benediction.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you bow with me as our elected leaders gather in Washington to deliberate military operations in Syria? Join me in prayer. Father in heaven, eternal and strong to save, we invoke thy blessing upon the USS Minnesota. We pray that you would make her the champion of freedom as she deters tyranny around our world. May she have the greater glory of being an instrument in your hands to be a global force for good. Most merciful God, bless the ship, her captain, and all who serve aboard her and their families. And may you, Lord, bless our nation in these days of turmoil. Guide our leaders, keep us strong, make your face to shine upon us, and be gracious unto us, and bring us to a righteous and everlasting peace. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Morris. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Please remain seated until our platform guests have departed. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, USS Minnesota's Commissioning Committee invites you to a post-commissioning reception under the large tent on the pier. As a reminder, the buses will pick you up where you were dropped off and return you to parking. The buses will continue to run until 2 p.m. This concludes our ceremony. Thank you for your support of our boat, our crew, our Navy, and our nation. Crew, hoo-yah, Minnesota! Minnesota, dismissed.